Okay. I'm gonna move on to your exile in Japan. While in a political exile in Japan, you were said to meet many Korean democracy movement activists and Christian activists as well. So could you tell me about them, or can you tell me any story you can remember?
The thing is, as I said, it was really more my husband who was in touch with many of the movements and organizations in Japan. But I certainly have met quite a few of them in forums and gatherings organized by a group that we also set up, the Japan Coalition for Philippine Concerns. And so when we would be organizing, for example, forums on the Philippines, they would be invited. They would come and participate in our forums, and of course, when the Japanese activists would be organizing activities also in solidarity with the Koreans, there would be many Koreans in Japan who would be, taking part and participating. But unfortunately, that was a long time ago, so I can't remember names.
It's okay. Just any particular experience with them?
Not really, nothing very special, except that we would be meeting together in forums, solidarity forums, either for the Philippines or for Korea.
Do you know any organization, or yes, of course, you said your husband, for example, like who took an action for the Korean democratic movement, and what they actually did for that?
Well, I knew he was active in that, but again, apart from the forums that I have participated in, I can't really say much about what specific solidarity actions had been undertaken. I was also, we had a kind of a division of labor. And as I said, my husband would be more in the forefront of working with political activists in Japan, political parties, even parliamentarians. But I, apart from office work, I did, alliance work with the church people, because I between my husband and I am the ecumenical person. So I would have very close contact with the National Council of Churches and the other churches in Japan, and so we established again a Japan Coalition for Philippine Concerns, composed mainly of church people, supporting our human rights struggle in the Philippines, but because they are also concerned about the human rights struggle in the Philippines, naturally they cannot but also be concerned about the Korean struggle for democracy. So I'm sure in some of our forums we had definitely taken up Korean issues among church people.
Okay. Your husband told you a lot of stories about Korean democratic movement, or like Gwangju uprising, anything he experienced?
Well, the thing is, he had the also opportunity to be physically present at some point in Gwangju. It's just that I can't recall whether this was before or after the uprising, but he did have the opportunity to visit the activists in Gwangju.
So, any interesting story?
Yeah,
you can tell.
It's a long time
ago.
So I can't really speak about the details.
Okay.
Yeah, I just knew that
he was
he
there.
had those very interesting contacts, and he found the experience amazing, and
must have been very a careful and dangerous situation he was in back then.
Oh no! Oh well. Yeah, I can't remember though.
I just wonder. You have you have children.
Yeah.
So back then, when he was actively taking part in Korean situation, how old were your kids?
Actually, when we went to Japan, we left our children in the Philippines. Yeah, it was going to be very difficult to bring them to Japan because they didn't know any Japanese, and they couldn't possibly compete in the Japanese schools, and we couldn't afford to take them to American schools. That was impossible. So unfortunately, we had to leave them. But I in 19 oh yeah. I conceived again while I was in Japan, just before the movement for the uprisings in the Philippines and in Korea, and so I had a boy. My three eldest children were older children were old girls, and so I had a boy who was born 10 years after my last girl. So so he is the baby of my daughters. Not just me. The baby boy.
Baby boy.
Yeah, so no, it was difficult because the great thing about Japan is that they had especially during the time when we were in Japan, they had a kind of a social welfare system. Of course, that's all dismantled now because of neoliberal globalization, you know, the rule of the market now in Japan. But before, they had a long established social security system, and we would get, free hospitalization, free medical treatment. But not only that, there were free nurseries. And so I could be actively involved in political as well as office work, and still be sure that my child would be taken care of. So yes, that was something. However, eventually, I decided that he had to be brought to the Philippines, and so for the past 3 years, I think that I was in Japan before the People Power Revolution in the Philippines. Because he had to study, and although he knew Japanese, I knew that we would not live forever in Japan, so he had to better be schooled in the Philippine and in the English languages.
In the English language.
And
That's
but
important.
yeah, it's hard for parents to be active in political work and at the same time undertake the responsibilities as parents. In fact, until now, I feel I really missed out on rearing my children. And somehow I'm really grateful that they are good, that they have a generous heart, and that they are concerned about society, even if they're not activists, despite the fact that I didn't rear them.
You did somehow, probably. While in a political exile in Japan, your solidarity group, the Resource Center for Philippine Concerns, collaborated with the Japanese activist groups and Filipino migrant groups in mobilizing support for the growing anti-dictatorship movement in Korea.
Yes, I think I mentioned that already.
Yes.
That through our engagement and involvement with activists, Japanese activists, as well as some Korean activists living in Japan.
Yeah.
We were able to. We did not initiate. We only supported, participated, collaborated with initiatives undertaken by Japanese and Korean activists.
What did exactly?
I remember we had they had organized a big forum, and we collaborated. Our center collaborated by bringing in church people into the forum because my as I said, the center I was working with, especially me, because I was working with churches and church people. yeah, my main responsibility was really to encourage and mobilize church people in Japan to support the human rights struggle in the Philippines, of course, because that's the purpose of our work there, but also in solidarity with especially our Korean friends.
Recently I think you mentioned that in the beginning, you were involved in a People's Forum on Peace for Life.
Oh yes, and here again the collaboration with the Koreans is really something that I value very much. So I after my activities as a solidarity activist on behalf of the Filipino people's struggle, I became more active in engaging with other activists in church-related activists, faith-based activists, not only Christians, but also Muslims and even also Buddhists. And so just to give you a little background, when I came back to the Philippines, I started working again with the National Council of Churches in the Philippines. And in 2001, I was a kind of a consultant for peace in the National Council of Churches in the Philippines, and I was asked to organize a major international conference in response to the U.S. designation of the Philippines as the second front of the war on terror. Bush was the one who made this hype about, the war on the war on terror. And to our, shock, the Philippines was named as the second front of the war on terror after Afghanistan. And so this was also very shocking to many of the friends of the Philippines. And so the National Council of Churches in the Philippines, and I was the one mainly responsible, organized a major conference. The theme or title is Terrorism in a Globalized World. You see, this was also happening at the time of the rise of, neoliberal globalization. So our conference actually focused on the union between neoliberal capitalism or neoliberal or capitalist globalization and militarization, the war on terror. So they were kind of reinforcing one another.
So the People's Forum on Peace for Life is about that.
So yes, that was the theme, and we it was a huge conference, and there were so many Koreans who came to the conference. A lot of the people I met in this meeting, of course, Kim Yong-bok among them, but many more were present in that gathering. It was an really international conference, but this People's Forum on Peace for Life, the whole idea first emerged in this conference. We had a workshop on Asia, and many of them were our Korean friends. Yong-bok was there, of course, and also our other Asian friends, and this idea of having a new movement, a kind of a Christian movement for global justice and peace to oppose the war on terror being waged by the United States. Mobilizing, nurturing faith as a force against injustice. That's the whole idea. It was not yet at the time, the idea was not yet at the time interfaith, but eventually the idea of setting up the People's Forum on Peace for Life became an interfaith movement, including other faiths, especially Muslims, because as you know, the war on terror especially targeted Muslims, which have now in fact all this fanatic these fundamentalist Muslims that in fact sprouted also as a response to the U.S. war on terror. So anyway, we had this whole idea emerged in that conference in Manila in 2001. And then mainly again our Asian friends, especially Koreans and Filipinos, got together to talk about what to do afterwards. And so emerged the idea, as I said, of coming up with this new People's Forum on Peace for Life. In fact, the title Peace for Life was a Korean invention. In fact, many people, especially the Westerners, were saying, we do not understand, what is this Peace for Life? It's too philosophical, too up in the air. And then we would always say, oh yeah, I know, that's very Korean. Precisely underscoring the reality that this is very much also a Korean
style,
is a Korean initiative, and so I think in this building of the People's Forum on Peace for Life, the collaboration became closer between Philippine activists and the Korean activists, and in fact. The first launching of the People's Forum on Peace for Life was hosted by the National Council of Churches in Korea, here in Seoul. So it was held in Seoul 1 year after the conference. I think it was in 2002 when we had this conference to launch the People's Forum on Peace for Life. And again, as I said, it was built on the strong collaboration between Filipino and Korean participants in the gathering. In fact, there were some conversations in terms of where to base the office, and so we had to kind of negotiate between the Philippines and Korea, because the Koreans also, of course, had every reason to want to host the organization in Korea. And so did our Filipino colleagues. So there were some negotiations, and finally it was anyway agreed to base the international movement in the Philippines. But as I said, the whole movement was largely built on the solidarity cooperation between Koreans and Filipinos working for human rights.
So it will continue.
I really would very much hope so. And in fact, Kim Yong-bok is he has always been one of the leaders of the organization. Now he used to be the vice moderator of Peace for Life. Now he is the moderator. So he is the head. He's not doing staff work, but he is the head of the organization, moderator.
I see. Do you have a close relationship with the Kim Yong-bok?
Oh yes. In fact, I think a lot of my solidarity initiatives in the ecumenical movement and outside the ecumenical movement had been undertaken in very close cooperation with Kim Yong-bok. And so you I think one of your questions is, who do you admire most in Korea? I say I admire so many people in Korea. It's so hard to really say, but then the fact that I had a very long-term, very close collaboration with Kim Yong-bok makes him a very special Korean for me.
How did you get to know him at first?
Well, I think first, as I said, I was working with the Christian Conference of Asia when I was young. Not really young, I was already 30. But I was working as youth secretary. But anyway, I met a lot of Koreans and worked with them. One of them was a major staff person in CCA. I told you about him, O.J. Sheikh, but even I think before before I joined the Christian Conference of Asia office in Singapore, Yung Bok had visited the Philippines quite a few times. He was very active in the urban-rural mission and DAGA. It was a documentation on action groups in Asia. And that brought him to the Philippines quite a few times, and he would come and work with our Islam dwellers, help with the organizing work of our Islam dwellers in the Philippines. And I think it was during those times when, even during the time of martial law, or before, or just before martial law was declared, that I must have met him. It's so hard, my memory is fading. And, it's glad that I'm really glad that all this is happening. I have this opportunity to try and recollect, but I cannot be that precise anymore.
What's the most,
But really, I think what I'm going to say about the Korean colleagues in the ecumenical movement, they have provided exemplary leadership in the ecumenical movement. Something that you Koreans really must be proud of. And so while in the Central Committee of the World Council of Churches, I told you already, I would be mainly collaborating with them. But I would also be campaigning for Koreans to take up high positions in the World Council of Churches. I would consider myself one of the major campaigners for the candidacy of your Korean friend, Park Sanjung. No, not Sanjung Park. Oh dear, my goodness. He's not here, unfortunately, in this meeting. Do you know the head of Oikotri movement?
I don't really recall.
My God.
The name?
See, I'm really old. But anyway, we had there was a chance that we would have an Asian, first time, Asian Secretary General of General Secretary of the World Council of Churches, and I was one of the major campaigners for your Korean to assume that position, and also I find many of your Korean ecumenical people very passionate in their work for justice, and so it is with them that I always would like to be allied with. Another very good friend, Dr. Lee Hong Jung, who lived in the Philippines for a while, who's now one of the heads of your one of your churches here in Korea. Well, we in the Philippines, in fact, during the last selection process for the General Secretary of the Christian Conference of Asia, we in the National Council of Churches in the Philippines nominated him for that position. But unfortunately, there was some division in Korea, and he did not get the full support of the Koreans. That's unfortunate, of the Korean churches. But I think what I'm trying to say is it is the Korean ecumenical people with whom I think I have had the strongest and most long-lasting ties with.
So good to hear. You must also have your terms of a democracy. So there have been many voices worrying that democracy has retreated since the Kim Dae-jung government in Korea. How would you describe the current state of democracy in Korea?
Yeah, in fact, I was so shocked. Not only that you have a president who is the daughter of a former, much hated dictator, I suppose. But also because I think it was March this year when you passed another national security law. I thought that was kind of unbelievable. So yeah, I find that there is a retrogression in the democracy movement, and that is why, and I can understand that the problems in Korea are probably, in a sense, much more complicated than in the Philippines, because you have the whole issue of Korean reunification, the division of the Korean peninsula. That's a major issue to contend with, and something that has really blocked genuine peace, reconciliation, and democratization in South Korea and the Korean peninsula as a whole. So you're facing a very complicated situation, but still I cannot help but be alarmed by some of the recent developments in Korea. As I said, you did not have a very major fightings and horrifying divisions that took place immediately after your 1987 uprising. Unlike in the Philippines, I told you, it has been, as I said, all the killings and of oppositionists, all the extrajudicial killings that in fact flourished during Macapagal Arroyo. Well, at least that, I believe, did not happen here in Korea, but still when I have always looked up to Korea as one of the countries where there is hope for democracy, and to see that happening, this retrogression, these reversals taking place, is something to really be very seriously concerned about.
Something that should be concerned about.
And I hope, as you said, there's so much that that is really working against us working for human rights and democracy. The young people being so absorbed in new technology and communication technologies, and not having experienced the horrors of the past. That is, working not only against us peace makers, not only in your country but also in my country, that we have to contend with, and that is why I really am hopeful that your initiatives, having all these commemorative events, to try and recall and remember, and what you're doing, even putting together all these facts and data about the people's struggle for human rights and democracy, the victimization of many people. Now that you're doing, oh my goodness, this is really something that we in the Philippines should follow and emulate.
This project will be very memorable.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You earlier mentioned you got to listen Kim Dae-jung's speech. I just want to know, what was it about his speech?
The prospects for peace and democracy in Asia. He was really this is a conference that also has just followed. I had another conference on the new emerging world order because of the the end of the Cold War, and then the rise of the rise of the United States as the superpower, and so the conference is all about the prospects for peace, democracy, and this is a very Japanese word for, I think, reconciliation, symbiosis. nurturing one another, empowering one another, and so he spoke about that in this. He has an article here.
Do you remember what year was that? I can read.
Yeah, why don't you
Where is
take a
this?
look? There is this introduction. The year must be here.
Let me see.
This was published immediately after, so 20.
This
No,
is 1995?
Oh, 1995. Yeah.
Yes. So,
1995. So it must have been 1994 when the conference.
1994. You know, you were the editor of the books, including Painting sa
Pintig sa malamig na
Pintig sa
malamig na bakal.
Malamig na Bakal, which is poems and letters from Philippine prisons.
Yeah,
Is it correct?
Pintig, pintig means throbbing. So it's really life and throbbing. Pintig sa malamig na bakal, malamig cold. Malamig cold is still is and a bakal is still. So it's really the pulses of life on cold steel, and that is how we have described all this artwork that came out of prison. There were so many powerful poems that were written by political prisoners, songs of freedom, also and music written by political prisoners, and very powerful letters coming from prisoners, men, women, old, young.
I see.
And so we were able to collect that in this, including the artwork, the paintings in this collection. Unfortunately, I couldn't immediately find a copy because that was a long time ago. It was stored in an office, and I couldn't believe it. I didn't have a copy in my house.
And also the book No Time for Crime.
Yes,
This
it was
about-
also during martial law, and this brought together actual very moving stories of women who were detained in prison, who suffered torture. Some of them not only suffered sexual harassment, but actual rape and sexual abuse. So these are really, very moving, but also horrifying stories of women who suffered during the time of martial law. So again, I'm glad I had the opportunity to record all that and put them into some publication. Yeah.
It will be
At least we have some recollection of the past through these books, but we need to continue recording the
Living.
Yeah.
for that will be my last question for today.
Okay.
What
there
should
is another one, the last.
yes.
Not so
there
difficult.
can be another last one, but
This is the
officially
last. This
yes.
is the last. Okay.
What can we do together, the Philippines and the Koreans, all Filipinos and all Koreans, do together for development of a democracy in this world? What should we do? What do you think? All together.
Yeah, hard question, isn't it? There are so many things we can do together, but what exactly it is that can be long lasting and can really yield very concrete results, that will not be easy. The very first thing I think that we need to address is to try and build on the already existing close relationship and partnership between Filipino and Korean church activists. Already it is there. I think what we need to do is really build on that, nurture that relationship, and forge a solidarity relationship that is stronger, and that in fact will enable us to to support our activism in our own respective countries, and at the same time support our work together, for peace and justice, not only in our two countries but in the world. In fact, the collaboration we have in Peace for Life, which is an international movement for global justice and peace, goes beyond the Philippines and Korea, and so we envision, in fact, in this particular movement, a world free from empire. The analysis that we have in Peace for Life is that we are all under the oppression of strong dominant powers, now at the moment led by the United States, and that our problems in our local areas, in our countries, we cannot just address them without looking at the larger geopolitical reality that exists in the world today, without addressing the whole issue of imperial control of, practically the whole world, control of resources, again for the benefit of the multinational corporations, the capitalist powers, for the benefit of the military, especially the military empire that has been there on the horizon, threatening peace and democracy in every part of the world. So I think this uniting together with Koreans, with other Asians, with other third world countries in Africa, in Latin America, that will be important in confronting imperial stranglehold of the poorer and less powerful countries, the dominated countries. No, it's almost a kind of an objective that is going to be very, very hard to achieve. But the mere fact that we're working together, dreaming together, work and trying to work in solidarity together to bring about, a new world where there is no oppression, there is no exploitation, where, peace, harmony exists. I think that's the world we dream for, and we should continue to fight for it.
Anything
together
you want to add?
I think I've said enough.
Yeah. So this project, you said, is a good chance for you.
Yes, and also because it takes the whole issue of the role of religion in dividing people, but also the role of faith and religion in uniting people. So we have to be very, in this movement, we are very conscious that religion is being used by those who would like to control. Religion is being used, for example, by the right-wing religions in the United States in order to control the rest of the world. They are the force, the so-called neoconservatives. The American right in the United States has been very much behind the U.S. war on terror. So we have to, especially among faith communities, we have to highlight how religion is being, used and manipulated by certain forces in order to control, dominate, and exploit other peoples. That is also true of how, for example, the Muslim extremists and fundamentalists are using religion. They're using religion again to carry out all these inhumane atrocities. That is unbelievable. You know how the jihadists have used religion as an excuse for all the atrocities and brutalities that they are doing in the name of Allah, so they speak. But that is really a distortion of the faith of the Muslims. That is not what genuine Islam is. I mean, the main message of Islam is in fact justice and peace. And so how certain elements in religious communities have been able to manipulate religion, use that for their own purposes, is unbelievable. But this is what we have to be concerned about. At this point in time, religion is playing a very dominant role in the conflicts of the world, and so it is very important for church people, church activists, faith-based activists to be really involved. You cannot left the whole struggle to the seculars. We church people, we faith-based people, we have to be right there in the middle of the struggle.
I hope
because a lot of the injustices, of the atrocities are being undertaken in the name of religion.
I hope that your voice will be heard more widely. And I think my question was done.
Okay.
Yes, and I really appreciate your time and your knowledge and also your opinion. And also I really appreciate this project.
Thank you for this opportunity. And it's great what you're doing. Unbelievable. I hope we can do something similar to that in the Philippines. And so I was going to tell our friends here, our Korean colleagues, my old friends, old not only because it was a long time since we started being friends,
Literally.
but also old, literally, that, we would like to emulate what you're doing here in Korea, and I hope you can also help us do something similar to this in the Philippines. We would very much like to invite you to the Philippines the next time around to commemorate together our struggles for democracy and freedom.
I will make sure that will be recorded and written as well and left. And I hope you enjoy your rest of the time.
I think we're having almost free time now, right?
Yes.
Oh, it's lunchtime.
I think the interview will be finished here.
Yeah, you have been a
so
very
much.
good interviewer.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for all your hard work, your patience. All of you recording this.
Thank you.